Welcome to Sunday Mornings with me, Jina Lee. Tune in each episode and join me for a cozy catch-up where we talk goals, growth, and finding joy in the everyday. Grab your favorite drink and let's dive in. April has been an interesting journey back home in so many ways. I spent a lot of time with family for most of March, and then I didn't come back home to the San Francisco Bay Area until that second week of April. The things that have been really great is that I've been spending a lot of time with friends and a lot of time with loved ones, but given some of the things that I've gone through in the past few months, it almost feels like the start of a new year. And there's so many goals that I had for the beginning of the year, and a lot of those went on pause just because of things that were outside of my control. And now that I'm back in the environment where a lot of the things are back in my control, I just found myself in this energy of trying to get back into things really quickly. So that was things like exercise, expectations around my sleep schedule, picking up hobbies, seeing friends and family. And while a lot of that has been really great and grounding in some ways, in a lot of ways that has been really exhausting and overwhelming. Because the reality is that I'm not really in a season right now where I can go. Like, one of the things that I've realized is that I have really inconsistent energy these days. And so some days I'll feel really good, and other days I'll feel really tapped out. And then some weeks will actually feel like that as well, where I'll have a really good week, and then I'll plan for the next week, assuming I have similar amounts of energy. And then I'll get to that week and just be completely depleted. And it's not like I'm adding more things to my schedule week by week. My schedule is pretty flexible. It's within my control, and generally I can plan around it. I don't have a lot of unexpected events that come up. So I think one of the things that's been really challenging has been for someone who has a lot of goals, who feels like a lot of those goals have been halted, and wanting to get back on track to be able to hit some of those goals. It's hard to figure out the right cadence of moving forward and building momentum again and building good habits again, while also honoring the fact that I am just a little bit tapped out. And I'm sure people who go through significant life changes like moving, getting a new job, and being a mom, I would imagine would be very similar. And I think for me right now, that season is grief. And I've never experienced it before, so I have no idea what to expect. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot, because we're approaching the summer season and hot girl summer and 90 days hard or 30-day challenges and all that, and I can't actually do that. Like, I want that. I wish I could be able to do that, but I'm not really in a place where I can do that right now. And so really this goal for me this month, and also my birthday month in June, is really thinking about, instead of thinking hot girl summer and just trying to be the best in everywhere, like the best shape, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, I am in a place where I just want to feel like myself again. And I want to do things from a place of joy. If you're like me, where you are a little bit of a control freak, you have a clear idea of all of the things that you want to do and the goals that you want to hit by the timelines that you want to hit. I know personally that's been really challenging for me to just focus on being really present, and also putting really strict boundaries around what I will do, what I won't do, what I'm choosing to focus on to accomplish and not. And I have always ignored all advice about you should only pick one goal for 1 month or 1 quarter or whatever and just focus on that. My brain just doesn't work that way. When I have to think about my goals in that way, I get myself into a frenzy. Let's say if my goal is to change a job, and then I just focus on interviewing or job prepping, then anything else that I want to do in this column in terms of my personal life, my hobbies, all of those feel like those are on pause. And so I completely get that I'm not going to move into a world where I'm focusing on just one thing for this season. But I think what I am focusing on is approaching everything in my life with the same intention. And that same intention is to feel like myself and to do things from a place of joy. And I remember one of the most powerful texts that I read in my lit major days was in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. And one of the through line principles of the text is that if you're going to do something, you do it excellently. Ron Swanson says that in Parks and Rec, right? Don't half-ass multiple things, whole-ass one thing. And while there's a lot of merit in that, for me, I find that if the bar that I'm setting for myself to do anything is excellence every single time, then it makes me almost not want to do something. Or if I do something, then I put an overwhelming amount of pressure in being the best at that. And not the best in terms of any external ranking, but my perceived best about what my outcome could be. And an example of this for me has always been in picking back up old hobbies. So like in playing tennis again or playing music again. That was such a core part of my life in my childhood. And when I think about trying to pick that back up in adulthood after spending more than a decade really not doing any of that, then I have an expectation for myself that if I'm going to pick up a racket or if I'm going to sit down at the piano, there's an opportunity cost of the 20 minutes or the hour that I'm doing on this activity. I need to get to that level of excellence that I used to have or achievement that I used to have when I did this thing. And I think that really sucks the fun out of the thing that you're doing. And it also is very not growth minded, right? You're doing this thing because you have a certain outcome in mind. And also you're constantly then thinking about the opportunity cost. I'm constantly thinking about if I'm spending an hour doing this, then that means it's an hour that I can't be doing something else. And I found that while there were so many ways in which that text was very inspiring and that message is inspiring for my personality, or at least where I am in life right now, I don't want to approach anything that I do with that mindset. And if I reflect back, I find that the things where I feel most proud and most in flow in doing something is when I approach it with joy and when I really do something for the intrinsic value of just learning how to get better, but not from the perspective of an outcome that I'm imposing on myself, but actually the intrinsic joy of just showing progress in something. And so for me, that's the core tenet of this month of May and also June. And I want to do things more joyfully again. And that is in response to some of the things that I've been going through. But also a lot of it has just been that I feel we live in a world where everything is so outcomes driven and where we're so productivity focused, where everything that we do has to have a certain tangible result for someone, whether that's for yourself, whether that's for the company. And I think there's a lot of value in just doing things because it makes you feel good or it makes somebody else feel good. And I think for me, this series has something like that. I find that I wish I had more time to be able to sit down with a cup of coffee with a friend on a Sunday morning and just chat with them about what they're thinking, what's going on in their life, more than just the superficial level of what does your day-to-day actually look like or week to week, but just honestly, what's your thinking? What are some of the challenges or what are some of the reflections that a friend is having through a different period in their life? And that could be very positive or that could be just very reflective, and there may not be answers, but talking through that and holding space for that friend is something that's really important to me, and I wish I could do that more. And I also wish that I could have more of that for myself. And so this is part of it. So if that's something that's interesting to you, then I hope you'll stick around for more episodes like this. But with that, I want to talk about some of the goals that I have for myself in this month and the next month. And the way that I'm framing my goals is actually really simple. I have a bucket of goals of things that make me feel like me because they take care of my body or they feed my soul. And that's my approach to the goals that I want to set for myself. And the through line is in doing those things, I want to do that from a place of joy and minimum amount of stress. And it's not to say that some of those things won't be stressful, but it's rather how I think about stress as a physiological response to the thing that I am doing. So for me, some of the things that make me feel like me and specifically make me feel like I'm nourishing and taking care of my body is exercise. Right now, I can feel in my body that I've put on excess weight, and while it may not look like it, if I saw a friend, I don't think it would be really that noticeable. But for me, I can feel it. I can feel it because my clothes are a little tighter. I can feel it because I get more winded when I'm doing the same sort of exercise, or if I use the same weights or even a lower class of weight, I'm more tired. These are all things that I can feel. So one of the things that I want to do is reset my body so that I can feel like myself in my own skin. I just want to feel in my body the way that I visualize my body and see my body, not compared to anybody else, but what makes me feel physically best. That is the hallmark of success. So what that looks like is I found that I actually can get steps pretty regularly. So I don't live in a city, I live in a suburb, but I walk a lot. So for me, it's actually pretty easy and very low effort to hit 10,000 steps a day. And so one of the goals that I have for myself is to get back to my routine that I set last year of getting 15,000 steps a day. I know that number is not feasible for everybody, but I know it is for me. And it's the number that I'm able to hit when I'm intentionally making choices to move my body a little bit more. So that might mean instead of sitting on the couch and watching TV, most of the times I make the choice to bring out my walking pad and watch TV while on my walking pad. Or instead of deciding to take a nap, which sometimes there's a time and a place for a nap, but sometimes if I'm feeling tired, especially after a meal, being disciplined to go for a walk just around the neighborhood for 10 minutes, I know is really helpful, both for that step count, but also for my digestion. I find when I do those things that I know are good for the rest of my body by moving it, I'm able to hit that 15,000 steps. That's one goal I have. The other is to go to the gym about 2 to 3 times a week. And I've been pretty consistently doing that since I've gotten back in April. I think it would be great if I can get that number up to 3 times a week. I've been averaging about 2 times a week, but I'm also not forcing myself to hit that number. If it's been a really hard week or I'm feeling extremely depleted from the events of the week, then I won't force myself to hit that 3. But it's more 3 as the benchmark of what I want the norm to be as opposed to 2. Just because I feel like my body can handle it, which is really exciting. Another thing that I know that helps me take care of my body is cooking for myself. And so I've had multiple weeks this week of eating out a lot, snacking a lot, and as delicious as that is, as a foodie and getting to try new food, I know for my body, it really does not like that. I feel really bloated, I feel really sluggish, and part of that is self-imposed. Like I could have better self-control with what I eat. But oftentimes it's just the amount of everything in takeout, like salt, sugar, fats. And I have a few go-to reset meals that I always make when I want to rein in the amount of processed food I'm eating or takeout food I'm eating. And I want to bring that back. And so just cooking for myself a little bit more. And the last thing has been sleeping. I'm by default more of a night owl, and I'm trying to be more of an early bird because I find that having some time in the morning has been really helpful for me. And for a while I was sleeping maybe 7.5 hours, but recently my energy capacity is constantly fluctuating. So for sleep, I find that instead of 7.5 hours as my average, I need 8, sometimes 9 hours, or sometimes I'll even need 10 or 11 hours. And I don't really know why that is. So if somebody might have some ideas on why that might be, please let me know. But what I do know is it's more than the average. And so I want to this month just give myself the permission to just get that extra hour of sleep and set aside whatever thing I may have done in that hour beforehand. So that's kind of the bucket of things that I am thinking about for taking care of my body as I want to feel more like me. And then I think when it comes to things that feed my soul, I think about the hobbies that I really want to pick up again. There are a number of new hobbies that I want to pursue this year, but there are a bunch of old hobbies that I really enjoy because they use a different part of my brain on a day-to-day. The biggest one for me right now, or the 2 biggest ones, are reading and music. I love literature, and one of the things that I really want to pick up again is activating the lit side of my brain again, like critically analyzing a text or reading really good prose. And so I picked up 2 Richard Powers books. I've never read Richard Powers before, so the first I'm reading is Overstory, and then the second that I'm reading in tandem is Playground. I like Playground more, but right now I can't find a copy of the book at the library. It's been on hold for weeks, and so I'm only have that in an ebook format, whereas Overstory I have as a physical copy. So I find that I've been reading Overstory more because I always keep a book in my purse. And then the second thing is I recently discovered human design as a concept, and I'm fascinated by all things personal development, and I picked up Erin Claire Jones's Human Design book that she published and want to read that. And if that's something that's of interest to you, let me know and I can share my thoughts on both the book itself as well as the principles of human design. Getting back into reading and the habit of reading without sort of expectation has been just really nice. I think I used to put a lot of expectation on myself because I was a lit major in the past. I think naturally about the literary analysis of this text. And the outcome of that type of literary analysis is either an essay or a very well formulated review of the book. And for me, I don't care to do that, at least right now. What I care to do is actually just feel good while reading and having something be thought-provoking and then just sitting with that. And that is my only goal with reading these texts. I just want to read something that is thought-provoking and that makes me feel a certain way. And then the other thing has been music. So this has been a little bit harder both logistically and also mentally. I live in an apartment, and so the times where I find that I most want to play is in the evenings, and I have to respect quiet hours. I have a keyboard that can plug in, but the keys themselves are pretty heavy, and so I think even with no sound, you could still hear somebody playing on the piano. But I'm trying to make it a more regular practice for myself, just to sit down and play and not play pieces that I've played in the past, but just things, a song that I listened to or I recently discovered or rediscovered, just because like I do really love that feeling of getting lost in music and I want to recreate that for myself. Again, reading and playing music are things that I've done throughout all my life, but the hope for me now and the goal for me now is to approach those things from a different intention. And really that intention is like joy and more play and just trial and error. And I guess like really like just being more growth mindseted about those things. And in the vein of doing things from a place of joy, I'm actually thinking about this question a lot at work. And so specifically, there's areas in my work where I want to upskill both in terms of domain knowledge, but also just tech knowledge. I live in Silicon Valley, and so AI is everywhere and also nowhere. Like the use of AI in your day-to-day work outside of a writer or a thought partner is, I feel, generally untapped, or at least it's untapped within my general vicinity. And so one of the things that I want to do is learn how to build something with AI that makes me more productive or my team more productive and efficient at work. And this is completely new knowledge for me. And so just like learning more about the space and also what my capabilities are is something I want to explore. And then the last thing is planning my honeymoon. So my husband and I were originally planning to go to Patagonia in April for our honeymoon, but we weren't able to do that. And so we've had to pivot and we're trying to figure out where we want to go, what's the vibe that we're looking for, what we want to see, like how long we're going to be there. And I love trip planning. I just love to travel and thinking about this next phase of my marriage with my husband, and also just like getting back into travel planning mode has been like just naturally very joyful. And I just want it to just stay that way because sometimes travel planning can be stressful. But again, like approaching everything from this place of joy and what really is the goal. And I think that like sometimes the yardstick or the outcomes and goals, like the narrative around goals and outcomes is often grounded in something really tangible. And that's okay. Like I have long-term goals for my career that I want to hit. And like I mentioned, I want to get back to the weight that I feel most comfortable in. But I think something not talked about as much is how you show up in doing those goals. It's equally as important, and that makes it stick. My success or lack thereof shows when the way that I do things and the way that I think about the outcome of my goals is as important as the goal itself. And so with that, it's been great to spend Sunday morning with you all. I would love to hear about your goals, how you're thinking about your goals, either for this month or for summer. Maybe hot girl summer is your thing, how your goals have been on track or maybe have taken a bit of a detour since the new year. And would just love to hear like how that's been going for you. And if you're someone like me where like how you show up in doing those things is equally important, then I would love to learn how that journey is for you. So with that, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.